All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Balanced Success Conversations. If we haven't met before, I'm Tameeka. I'm the Goal Success Coach for High Achieving Women, and I am still working full time in the corporate world. I am very, very full time right now. So I created this panel as a space for high achieving women to have honest, actionable conversations about creating success without burning out. Today's topic is redefining success, creating intentions that actually fit your life. And I'm thrilled to be joined by three incredible panelists who bring a wealth of experience, insight, and real life strategies to this conversation. All right, so let's get started. I'd love to begin by having each of our panelists briefly introduce themselves. So, Chelsea, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. So I don't believe we wear multiple hats. So I can tell you that I'm a business owner, a master certified life coach, a mom of two young kids who are involved in literally everything. But we aren't the labels that we wear and live. So for me, your identity, your inherent gifts that you have built within you that you were given that only you can do aren't a marketing angle. They're your only angle. They're the only thing that you need. And so for me, I will die on the hill that ambition done right inside your own authority is the only fuel that you really need to move forward. Having optimism without expectations is non negotiable for me. And I really genuinely believe that clarity is this sweet spot that everything grows from. And that's kind of everything about me in a nutshell, really.
Awesome. Love that. And yes, I do agree. Ambition is definitely the key. So, Debbie, would you like to go next?
I'd love to go next because I love what Chelsea said. I was like, yes. I am Debbie, and I host a New World Normal podcast and community where we talk a lot about disrupting norms, exploring norms, personal norms, and systemic norms. And we do talk a lot about reconnecting to the people we were before we put on all those labels that Chelsea just talked about. Because so many of us get so attached to those labels that we forget who we are and what our innate talents are. So I'm really excited to be here and connect with you all and talk with people who are ready to build resilience and live more intentionally and aligned to those inherent gifts and talents that you have and have always had, but may have forgotten about.
Mm, love that. Okay, and Carrie.
I'm glad to be the what do they call the blast hitter who's supposed to make the home run for the bases loaded because I feel like you guys have set me up perfectly. Hi, I'm Carrie West. I am an award-winning author. Sorry about the label, but I like that one. I am a storyteller. I worked in the entertainment industry, and in working there, I realized that our lives are stories. And it's the stories we tell ourselves, it's the stories we were told. And we have forgotten our own epic novel of success and beauty and wonder because we have been weighed down with stories that society and family have given us and told us we should be living. So I help people first find awareness, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can't do anything about it, and then find the pathway free so you can live your free life, who you are, without labels, without all the other stuff that gets put on top of us.
Oh, I love that. I can already tell this is going to be an awesome conversation. Okay, so to get started, I'd like to understand for each of you, and I think we'll start with Carrie. So, what inspired your approach to goals and redefining success?
I didn't have any choice. It's the classic hit rock bottom, and you realized everything you had or you thought was real wasn't. And I hope I can reach people before they have to go through that rock bottom crash, because that's not fun. But sometimes if you're thick-headed like me, sorry guys, no judgment. I'm the leader of the thick-headed parade. I didn't pay attention when things were going south, so I had to really get walloped upside the head. And when I saw that, it's like, okay, I have to reevaluate. I have to find out who I was. And that can be tricky because you get comfortable. Even if it's uncomfortable, you get comfortable. And you don't and the brain loves to stay comfortable and stay familiar. So you're taking on these challenges from a lot of different fronts, but that's what did it for me. And I realized that I was the author of my life. The pen is in my hand. The pen is in everybody's hand. There wasn't anybody forcing me to live what I was doing. All those old stories were done. My parents had long been gone, and it was time for me to take responsibility and take charge of my life.
Yeah, I definitely understand that one.
Mhm.
Definitely. Debbie, what are your thoughts?
I resonate a lot with that. I had no choice. I had to. I had one of those years that pulled the rug out from under me. It started with loss of a loved one, serious medical issues that threatened my own life. And then I was also in attendance at the Route 91 Las Vegas mass shooting. So dealing with PTSD, literally no denying it. And still I ignored it and kept soldiering on, in that familiar and comfortable in the discomfort, right? Even though I knew I wasn't living aligned to who I was, I soldiered on anyways until it got to a point where I was about ready. I called it a slow stumble. So I didn't necessarily hit rock bottom, but I was doing that thing where your body's moving faster than your feet and you feel like you're just going to do a face plant. That's how I describe it. And so eventually in 2019, on a walk with a friend, and she said, Debbie, I've taken time off work for far less than what you've got going on. And I was like, wait, take a break and prioritize myself? What is this you speak of? Like, this isn't what we do. Um, so that permission helped me make the decision to take a break and start taking care of myself and focusing on what I wanted. But the reality was I had no idea what I wanted. I was so disconnected. So doing that work to figure out who I was and reconnect and recognize that there's so many other women in my shoes who were completely disconnected to what they want and how they want to live, living life on autopilot, doing all the shoulds. I was like, we've got to do this differently. And it was actually 2020 that I had the idea of New World Normal because everyone was complaining about the old normal and how terrible this new normal was. Not saying that normal was good or fun by any means, but I was also remembering that the old normal was not great either. Like, and don't we decide what our normal is? Like, so got me playing with the idea of normal and down this path of a completely different life, more fulfilling, more aligned.
Um, I I love that, and I completely resonate where you were saying about, you know, not knowing what you wanted, because that's how my journey started. It was me realizing I was on a path. It To everybody else it was a great path, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't happy on that path. And so I was just like, why am I not happy if I have all the things that everybody says I should have to be successful and happy? And
Right? You
that
go
was
down
me.
the list and you're checking the boxes
Yep,
like, I've done all the things. Come on. Why am I not happy?
yep,
Yeah.
yep. That was my journey as well. So Chelsea.
And honestly, that was me as well. Carrie, Debbie, hearing you guys talk about like yours kind of coming from this place of like internal need from like your external circumstances and things happening around you. For me, I feel like mine was more of like the absence of things happening around me. I was hitting all the goals, I was checking all the boxes, right? Doing all the things, and I felt nothing. I was like, what's next? Okay, like what's next? And not in a weird, like ego inflation kind of way, but in a like, I just had become a new mom for the first time. My husband works like 20 days out of state a month. So it's like just me in this weird bubble of life. And like everyone's like, oh my gosh, you can do it all. And I'm like, that just feels weird for me. Like for other people to like tell me that I'm supposed to do these things and I don't have to do these things. And being able to still find a way to do the things, but watching other really just high functioning, high capacity, like achieving women kind of fall or, collapse under the weight of the goals they were setting for themselves for stuff that like wasn't really even their goal to begin with. It was never really aligned with what they even wanted. And I could see that thread and they'd be like, oh, I really just want to do this. So I've got to hit this goal. And I'm like, those two things don't line up at all. So, like, why do you need that version of success to find the fulfillment for the thing that you really want? And seeing more and more people kind of have that internal dilemma, but still push forward. I was like, I no, break me away from the herd. Don't sign me up for that. I will find my own path if that's what it takes. And I just refuse to show up for any type of work or version of goals and success and metrics that required me to feel like I was disappearing from my own life in order to achieve them. So it was just more
You,
of a what's that, Carrie?
I was just going to say, you radical, you.
I was like, I'm sitting here wanting to say, heck yeah. Like,
It was honestly a really kind of like rude awakening in the best way to be like, wait a second. I've never really put all my eggs in anyone else's basket. I've never done what anyone else really thought I should do just because they had an opinion on what I should do. So why am I letting this, I don't know anything about running a business, like lane be when I start that? And it was really easy to ignore it for a really long time. And then it wasn't. And I'm really grateful that it wasn't.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest piece. And it seems like all of us had that. Like we had an idea that was fed to us of what it was supposed to be, how we were supposed to feel. Achieving these goals was supposed to mean something. It was supposed to mean, this thing. But the reality is, I think and at this point, because I've talked to so many different people, for a while I was like, okay, it's generational. It's not generational. There are people from all generations that are like, that's not what I want. This is not what, society is telling me I'm supposed to want this. I tried that. I'm miserable.
But you know what? There's been studies done that say our drive for belonging, our instinctual habits, our instincts, it was a part of us from the earliest evolutions of man, is to belong. There is safety in numbers. You have to belong. You have to be a part of something. And the way we know we're a part of something is if we talk the same way, we do the same things, and we go along. When you don't go along, there's a threat of rejection and abandonment, which from the old lizard monkey amygdala brain is the scariest thing you can do. So this is why so many people get trapped into this. And like you, Chelsea, my parents called me the black sheep as a way to shame me, as a way to get me in line. And now I look at it as a badge of honor.
Built a whole business around it. In fact,
Yeah,
it's the name
exactly.
of it.
Yeah, but I see you have Black Sheep Boulevard. That's why I had to say it. Because when you can know that we have evolved as human beings and challenge, and it's not always easy, you have to focus on it. And about 50% of the population will never get there, and that's okay. They, in their own time, they will. But when you can challenge that, when you bring it to light and just say, huh, does that fit for me? Just
well,
asking that question, don't you think changes everything?
Yeah.
yeah. And I feel like that's why these kind of conversations are so important, right? That belonging piece. If we're realizing we don't belong with all the box checkers, well, who do we belong with? Well, the fact that we're all sharing these stories and talking about our experience of checking the boxes and still being dissatisfied. Oh, those are the people I belong with. You know, they get what I'm feeling. So
If you can
Exactly.
first get a sense of belonging with yourself. And I think that's what Chelsea and Debbie and all of us have been saying is you've discovered this self-belonging. Haven't you?
yes, 100%. And also, we're still social creatures. We need other people. Like, I feel like that's one of the shoulds that we've been given that can be harmful. The old pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality of like, it's all on you. You've got to do it. The hyper independence. Well, the reality is we're social beings and we need each other. So I'll help you pull up your bootstraps. I'll help you find a connection to yourself because I've found it. And I know it doesn't always look like what they have told us it's supposed to look like. So I'll walk alongside you
I
while
like
you're
to
trying to
think,
figure it out.
and I like to use the analogy for that a lot like a tribe, like what we think of in like, the older history books types tribes. Those people needed each other for survival, for community, for all of the things. Yet there was a chief of the tribe who had his own gifts or her own gifts or their own way and their own persona and how they did things. There was a medicine woman who had her own gifts and her own lane and her own thing, and they could not exist without each other. Yet, if the medicine woman tried to step into the chief's role, tried to step into the fisherman's role, tried to step into the person who planted the tree, like they can't do each other's jobs the way that that other person can. And so it just becomes a matter of like you have to not necessarily know your lane, but you have to know why you want that lane for yourself. And when you can own that lane, everyone else will own it with you and for you and because of you, so that they can own their own lane, so that we can all actually grow and continue to thrive as this like group of humans in this collective space.
That's such a great example of
Yeah.
interdependence. I like that.
Mhm.
Thanks.
And I like to talk about a tapestry of life. We all need each other to build this beautiful tapestry. But if we're all alike and we're all doing the same thing, it's only one color. It's all white or it's all blue. So there's nothing going on there. So you each need your unique beingness in this oneness, in this community, so that we have the richness, we have the vibrancy, we have the vitality, we have shadow, but we also have beautiful light, and it all comes together, and it's wonderful. But that's by owning your piece of the tapestry, owning who you are, and not trying to be like the other people, because it'll all be a one color tapestry.
Yep. Very true. Very, very true. And one of the the things that I've been thinking about just a little bit more, just because I'm seeing it more around me now, is not so much that, everybody, at least to me, I believe everybody has their own unique strength. Some people truly think that, that if you're not born with a certain skill, then you'll never be able to attain that skill. I don't believe that at all. I believe that anybody is capable of achieving whatever it is that they put their mind to. But I feel like some people are putting their minds to things that just because they see somebody else achieving, they're not really taking the time to fully like come back to themselves and say, yes, that looks exciting, but do I want that? Or looking at it and saying, okay, this is the path I want. Let me go down this path. But then getting maybe like a third of the way and saying, you know what? I don't think I really want this. But then being too afraid to make another change or to change their mind because they feel like, oh, I've already changed my goals once. I've already changed who I am once. I can't do it again. And it's like at any point in time, you are allowed to go in and make those changes. It's your life. You are the only one who has that ability to make that change for you. So, okay, so we have talked about, why, in a sense, why there's so many women that are disconnected from their goals. And I think we've all pretty much said the same thing about, okay, this is what we've been told we're supposed to want. And then again, the belonging piece. But how can women start to separate the external definitions of success from what truly fulfills them? Okay, Chelsea, you want to go first with this one?
Yeah, separating, so you said separating external definition of success, like what,
Yes.
society thinks success is from what truly fulfills us. I think one, it goes back to that self-awareness, right? Like you have to know what it actually is that fulfills you. I like to think of it as like this like space in between, like we are who we are and we have success or business or this goal or this thing. But like if people are trying to bridge the gap between the two, what's in the gap? Like what do you want to fill that gap with? And when you know what you want to fill that gap with or how to fill it with the right things for you, it doesn't really become a separation of success and what fulfills you. It is you that fulfills the definition of success and creates a success that's correct for you. And when we fight that, when we're like, oh, here's this goal, I've got to have that, that shows that I'm successful, we start to get a lot of resentment towards the goal, towards the person who set the goal for us, whether we know who that is consciously or subconsciously. And we start to look at like the pressure and the force and the things, and that weighs on us long before we ever realize that it weighs on us. And so a lot of the times you can just tune in to what your body is feeling and thinking and doing and moving. And do you actually show up and enjoy the, first 2 hours of your day, whether that's at work or at home or how that is? Maybe you're just wandering aimlessly through the morning. Maybe that's what you love to do, is wander aimlessly through the morning. Amazing. I love that for you, right? Maybe you love to hit the ground running. Great. I love that for you. But there's this version of you that gets to decide what that is. And when you let other people like fill that space between who you are and what you want to achieve, it just gets to be really strenuous. You're just rowing in somebody else's pond for no reason whatsoever, and there's no finish line, and you're just, whatever. You can create all the drama and the storms and the things that you want while you're in this river or lake or, space between. Or it can be the most peaceful, like playhouse that you've ever created and gone and explored. But you do get to choose. And I think that we've been conditioned to not think it's a choice. And so for me, I really think that like it's not even about separating them, but it's literally about merging it all together. And just kind of knowing and owning and believing that you have a say in what that gets to feel like.
I love that. And when I first started my business, that was the biggest piece, understanding that you do have a choice, because that was a very new realization for me. It's like you may not like the outcome, but you always have the choice. And I think once people own that, then they can start making those changes.
And I think there's a clue in that. And I think, what you said, Tameeka, and Chelsea, what you just said, especially women. I'd like to say it ended at my generation, but I'm sad to say I know a lot of like my stepson's girlfriend is in her 30s, and she is still dealing with old messages of she has to have a baby, she has to have a baby because that's what will fulfill her. Now, that might be true. Her path might be motherhood. That's fine. That's fine. But I wonder how, especially as women, we are the minute the family realizes you're having a girl versus a boy, they change everything. The colors, the language. Language is vital. When you can take apart the language that you use, that tells you where you are in life. The should, like shoulds. I always say when someone says should, it's a story. Right there. Know your story. But do you have the courage to really look at this? Because dealing with some of this stuff can be really uncomfortable. Breaking away from people that love you, and you feel like you're almost letting them down. You're not. You're do you want to let somebody down, or do you want to let yourself down? And especially as women, I think we're more inclined to take care of everybody else before we take care of ourselves. I think that there's a great saying that anytime you travel, you hear it all the time. Put your mask on first. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't really take care of the people around you. But so many times as women, and I'd love to know if you guys found this too, your first inclination is to take care of your family and take care of your partners and take care of everybody out there before you take care of yourself.
100%. And I kind of
Yep.
wanted to go back a little bit to the original question of how do you figure out what it is that you want or what's important to you? At least I think that's what the original question was.
Yes.
Um, and for me, in my experience, in my lived experience, and then also now my experience with clients, so often they're so disconnected that sure, once they build that awareness of I have agency, I get to make a choice, I get to make changes. So what do I want? And it's, I have no idea. And so even identifying the gap that Chelsea was talking about can be really challenging. And so sometimes I encourage people to start, not to stay here, but to identify the things you don't want. That's so much easier, right? Like I know I don't want to get up early. Like I know that about myself. So I can start there. That's an easy, like what can I build into my mornings that would give me a little more sleep? And starting as small as possible. So that's what I always encourage people to do is if you can't figure out what you do want, start with what you don't want. Don't stay there, but that is an easy place to start. And then be sure to start as small as possible, right? Because we're already overwhelmed by all the choices. And then if we're not feeling super great already, we can get really stuck and frozen, nervous system. So try to start as small as possible. Trying to make a giant life change might just keep you right where you are. But if you think I could just change this one little thing about my morning and see what happens, and like, ooh, I liked that. I'm going to add one more little thing on and see how that goes. So then you don't get overwhelmed and fry your nervous system in the process.
I want to ask something of the group, if you don't mind, Tameeka. I want to
Of
ask
course.
my great panelists and you too, because this is something else that I see again, because I started out a little bit earlier in life than all of you. One of the challenges I think and we all face today is we have this thing right here, and it is loaded and filled with so much information and so many headlines and so much, especially social media of what everybody in the world is doing. So we think we should be, oh, I compare myself to what I just saw on Instagram. Is that what I should be doing? Like you said, Debbie, about what don't I want to do? But what do you do when you're bombarded with all this stuff about what everybody else is doing? How do you, here's the question. How do you navigate through all the noise?
I turn it off as much as possible. I'm not someone like social media. I've turned off all my notifications on my phone from social media. There was on my last laptop, I forget what it was called, but there was a way to turn off the news feed on Facebook. So when I would log into Facebook on my computer, I could only see the pages that I specifically went to. So I couldn't see what everybody was posting. Now I might look at Instagram and Facebook on my phone maybe once a week. Now, I will admit there are times where if I click on it, I do get caught in the death scroll. I will still get caught in,
I like
but
that death scroll.
it's not as often as it was because there was a point where I remember, and I had the app on my phone where I would block, like during certain times of the day, I would block access to the apps. But then it had this thing where it would tell me how many times during the day I attempted to access one of the apps that I blocked.
Why has it got to rat me out like that?
Oh my God.
It's like it will tell you, and I think there was one day it was over 100 times, and I'm like, and it was during a work day. Granted, yes, it was during COVID, so I was working from home a little bit more, but I was like, this is insane. I've literally picked up my phone and attempted to look at something over 100 times in a day. And it was like there were several sites because you have like Pinterest, that's a huge one for me. Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, all like YouTube, all of that. So it's not just, one app, but it's like this is how many times I've picked up my phone today. And I think it was from doing that experience and just having it like thrown in my face, of course, because I set it to do that. But it's like, okay, I need to make a change. So it's gotten to the point where now Pinterest is still a problem for me. I'm not going to lie, Pinterest is still a problem. But Instagram and Facebook, like I said, maybe once a week. There, I'll go weeks without even thinking about it, and then my mom will say, "Oh, well, we shared some pictures on Facebook." I'm like, "Oh, okay, I'll go check Facebook now."
But
For me, I realized it was a compulsion. Like I was just grabbing my phone mindlessly, right? So it was setting intentions, building awareness, setting boundaries for myself. Like I've gotten really good. I'm only allowed to look at TikTok at a certain time because once you get stuck, you get sucked in, you just can keep scrolling for hours and nobody's got time for that, no matter. And that's not even taking into account what those images and information might be doing to my
Mhm.
my mental health or cognition. So, um, but also because I saw so many people struggling with it, I actually created a resource. So I love that you asked this question. I have a free quiz on my website that people can take. Um, and it's a or not a doom. That's one of the scrolling types is doom scroller. Um, but it helps you identify what kind of a scroller you are, and then you get a personalized email challenge to your inbox with ways you could tweak the way you use social media. But it's so insidious and it's so everywhere and it's so hard to avoid, so hard to not get caught in the compare and despair. And I feel like that also adds fuel to that overwhelm of when we are deciding we want to do things differently. There's too many options, too many things going on. So that's what makes it really hard to identify what you want versus what everybody else on Instagram is doing and you think you should want.
that damn belonging comes back up,
Yep.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to say, I'm going to add a little bit of a different perspective because for me, I think it's more about like specificity, like knowing who you are and, whether it's why you're there or what you do and don't like subscribe to or belong to or, like want to be in your space because now they make it so easy to be like, ignore, 5 for 30 days. See you later. I don't want to see stuff like this anymore. That if you know who you are and you know why you are so deeply like that thing, like you can't just be ambitious. Why are you ambitious? How does ambition rule your day to day? And how does that affect the people in your circle that ripples out? Like, why do you show up that way? And like, what does that create in the world around you? And when you know that, it's so easy to be like, not my person, not my thing, not my place, not for me. Nope. Don't sign me up for that. And to just kind of like push stuff off. For me, so like clarity is a gift of mine. It's like my superpower. It is one of my like deepest like gifts and values. So that kind of information overload does not faze me in the slightest. And I recognize that that's not true for everyone, which is why I'm not out there preaching like just yourself and you can do this by any means, right? Like for Tameeka, like yours is very much like a peace and like a sense of like purpose and like having that peaceful like thing for yourself, however you
Mhm.
describe that in whatever language. And Debbie, yours is boundaries, like within that like space of like, nope, like this is how I do that. So we all have a different way of describing what that like boundary means and is for us. But I definitely think that you get to just show up and be and know what's for you and not for you. And it makes me laugh every time my husband comes home from work and he like turns on the news and I'm like, can you just turn that off? I'm like, our kids don't need to be exposed to this. I'm like, you don't need to be exposed to this. I'm like, I certainly don't want to be exposed to this. And we just get to kind of know what can be and doesn't have to be for us. And everyone gets to have their own way and their own way forward. But we also just have to know what that is and not in a blanket sense, but in a really deep, specific way for us.
Yep. Yep.
Mhm.
And I want to say to everybody listening today and who will see this thing, every one of this panel gives you permission to find your own way. You don't have to wait for somebody to tell you turn off the news or don't scroll or don't or should or whatever. You have self permission to decide for you what works for you.
Exactly. Exactly 100%. Because it was understanding and taking ownership of that that helped me get through because when I got to my point where I was just like, I have no idea what I want, I was to the point where I was getting migraines almost every day, just getting up and thinking about getting ready for work. And it was one day I was like, I need to just stay home. So I sent an email. I was like, I have a migraine. I cannot come in today. As soon as I sent that email, migraine went away immediately. That was my clue. I was like, okay, this is much deeper than I think it is. And I started a journaling practice from that day. Before that, I tried journaling. It never made sense for me. Like I felt like I would pick it up and I remember like, like the old shows where they're like Dear Diary. I tried that. I'm like, who am I talking to? So, but from that point, I sat down and I'll never forget my first journal entry was like 4 pages long. And I just kept writing and writing and writing. I'm like, what is going on? And at the end, I was like, I don't want this. It's like, okay,
Mm.
so I know now that I don't want this. What do I want? And it was from that moment that gave me it. I gave myself that permission to say, I want something different. I'm going to focus on the things that are going to get me closer to what I want. Yes, it's been a journey. Everything in life is going to be a journey. You can't make a decision and expect, okay, I made this decision. Now everything is immediately going to fall into place.
What?
If
That
only
doesn't
that was
happen?
the if only that was the case. But I think that's the biggest piece. The only person that can give you permission to make those changes, to define what success truly looks like for you in your life is you. And I think
Yeah.
it's really understanding and owning that. Because yes, with that ownership, there's responsibility. So when you're doing things that don't feel good, you are also responsible for those decisions and those actions. But that also means that you get to make the changes that will lead you on the path that is going to put you where you want to be. So, all right. Okay, so, oh, I had a question written down. We've already talked about it so much though, and I love it. It was about self-awareness. It was saying what role does self-awareness play, but I think we've definitely gone through that. So if you haven't gotten that message yet, that's the key message. I think the first thing you have to do is become more self-aware, understand what it is, that you understand where you are, understand what are the things that are causing you to not feel joy, the things that are truly making you feel miserable, and then looking at the things that really bring you joy. What are the things that you do on a regular basis where you sit down, you start doing the work, and you look up 5 minutes later and like 3 hours have passed? Like, what are those things? And let's see, I do have a few other questions, but I really feel like this conversation, we've like gone through so much. So, what's one reflection exercise from each of you that will help women identify what success means to them? So not necessarily well, I guess in a sense what it looks like, but like what's an exercise that women can do, or anybody that they can do to identify what it truly looks like for them. So let's see, Debbie, do you want to take this one first?
Sure. I usually have people start with a values inventory. The idea of self-awareness being kind of foreign to people. You get really disconnected to
Mm,
what really is truly important to me. Um, so you can take a look at you can probably Google values inventory and you'll get lots of PDFs that has just a list of different values, and go through and just circle the ones that come out to you. Set it aside, come back to it after you've, done the dishes, taken a walk, and then look at the ones from the ones that you've circled that still pop out at you, and start there. And how can I set goals that are completely aligned and supporting this value I have, is the best place to start, I believe, to build values aligned goals, because you can't align them to your values if you have no idea what your values are. So identifying those values first.
mm, yes,
I
love
keep
that.
it simple.
I think it's an easy first step for people to take.
Hmm.
I think it's something very easy. It doesn't feel overwhelming. They don't have to set aside like an hour to do it is something very easy. Yeah. So, Carrie, how about you?
I like what excuse me, I like what Debbie said, and I think I start a little bit before that. Um, we have forgotten how to dream. We have stopped using our imaginations. And so I invite people, men and women, but women like this exercise a lot, to imagine what the movie of their life would be. Who would be cast in the starring role? And what would be the theme of that story? Would they be Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind and Tomorrow is Another Day and I Will Survive? Or are they Julia Roberts, or are they J Lo, or who are they? Who are they casting in that role movie of their life? And really have fun with it. Pretend they're an A-list Hollywood director and they're writing their life, the epic story of their life. And then what is the real ending you want? When you are watching your funeral from some esoteric place after you're gone, what's everybody saying to you? What did they say about you at your memorial? She was a brilliant mother, he was a great statesman. And then how do you feel about that? There was a really interesting article on Substack from a palliative care nurse who sat with 300 people as they were dying, as they were on their last breath. And she recorded what they said about dying and what they wished their life would have been. And so it's become my new go-to thing about what where do you want to be when you're on that space? What regrets? Because we all have regrets. No question we have regrets. So what regret do you wish you don't have? That you wanted to be happier, that you wanted to take better care of yourself, that you wished you would have gotten more massages and less um, worrying about meeting notes, and like everybody's been saying, I wish I would have less, not worried about the house being perfectly clean and instead gotten a massage. So I just invite them to open up and use their imagination to do this future view of where they think they're going to be. And sometimes I had one client absolutely say, I'm terrified of my future dream. She called me in a panic. It just came out that I was lonely and everybody abandoned me. And I said, okay, you found it. That's your greatest fear. That's what's holding you back. So what do you want it to be? And it's eye opening, and it can be a lot of fun. So that's how I do it.
I love that. It's it's very similar to a visualization meditation that I include. So I have a goal success workshop, and then I included like a bonus training on creating a vision board. But with that is the visualization. So it's very similar. It's looking at the movie of your life
Hmm.
and you imagining what that would actually be, and then taking the time to journal about that. So it's very
Hmm.
similar, but it can be terrifying.
Yeah, yeah.
It can be absolutely.
Honestly, when that one woman found out how scared she was about it all, that her life was really not ever going to improve, that was the work. You know, your wounds show you where you need to focus, and that was the work. That she was holding this terror that her life was going to be absolutely meaningless. At the end of her life, it would have been absolutely meaningless, and none of it would have mattered for anything.
It's
I
very
can't.
powerful.
To me, she did the best work of all. People who came back and said, "Oh, I did all. Oh, so wonderful and flowery." That's great, but this was really deep and soulful. This really set her on a huge path of transformation. Absolutely remarkable.
Yeah, love that. And Chelsea?
Yeah, so I thank you for letting me go last because I had a chance to go and actually grab like the prompt and the thing that I love to give people because I don't ever remember what all of the seven little things are. But this is something that no matter where you are on this like self-awareness, self-actualization, growth, whatever you call just knowing and loving like who you are and how you do what you do journey, right? Whether it's something that you're like, I need a lot more of that, or like, no, I really know who I am. And it's just like fine tuning things on a daily basis. This gets to be something that like going through this changes every day. So it's not something that's like a one and done kind of like prompt journal thing, and I find that people really, when they allow themselves to like elaborate in it, it gets to be a lot of fun for them, and it gets them to like set down all of the like negative headspace stories that they have and really just move forward with things. So I'm going to read the 7 different prompts, and they're based off of like the 7 different energy systems like that we carry within our body. But essentially you're answering and like filling in the blank of I am what, like pick a word for the day if you need to, and then it's I feel this. And obviously you can do one word answers, but like the more you explain why you put your answer, the more you learn about yourself, right? So it's I am, I feel, I do, I love, I speak, I see, and I understand. And I'll repeat them one more time just so that people don't have to rewind if that's okay. It's I am, I feel, I do, I love, I speak, I see, and I understand. And what's really cool is that for those who are like, yeah, I'm in that fine tuning space, like I'm pretty sure I like, have my lane and know who I am, pick one of your values, right? So for me, if I pick clarity as a value and I know exactly what that means to me, I am I'm obviously not clarity. That's, wrong tense and all the things of, all the educated people in the world. But like, what does that mean if I'm clarity? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for my business? What does that mean for the people who get to exist in my wheelhouse? What does that mean for my 4-year-old, my 9-year-old? Like, what does that get to create in my house if I am that definition of clarity today? Or I feel clear. What happens in my world when I feel that way? When I do clarity, when I give clarity, what changes, what ripple effects happen because of the conversations that are had that day elsewhere, right? Like, why do I love clarity? Why do I speak it? Like, how do I see it? What is that my gift? Like, I understand clarity because of all these different things. And the answer changes every day. And it's such a fun way to just hype yourself up over the things that you're inherently just amazing at. But also, if you don't know what that is yet, you get to learn a lot about where your resistance lives and where your strengths live and where you want to go just from living and like activating those different like spaces within yourself.
I love that. I love that you've tied in the chakras like that. And a couple
Yeah.
things you said, I wanted to emphasize this isn't a one and done. I feel like none of these things are one and done. Even the choosing the values that I have right now that are most important and most present to me in this moment might be different 6 months from now, right? Because my life has changed. I have different priorities. And also the defining it for yourself is important. So you can get a list of goal or a list of values off of the internet, but what does that word mean to you? Like you said, clarity might not mean to you what it means to other people. So defining it for yourself is so huge, and recognizing that this isn't one and done. I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to return to it over and over again to get more clarity.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like I did catch the link to the chakras. I kind of had the idea when you said 7, but then as you walk through it, and I can envision that as a journal. Like, because I'm one, as much as everybody talks about, we're paperless, I like pen and paper. I have pen and paper right here in front of me. I prefer pen and paper. So, but I could clearly see that as a journal, whereas like every day, you have a page for every day, and you get to sit down with that, because I feel like, and this might just be a personal thing, I feel like I have a stronger connection to myself and to what I'm writing if I'm physically writing it, not necessarily if I'm typing it. Like, there's a coldness to me when it comes to typing the initial whatever you're working on.
I
So,
feel
Yeah,
like they've
there's
done
something
studies.
powerful.
Yeah,
Oh,
there is power in using the pen and paper. It's science. They've studied
it
it.
connects. It
Don't ask
connects.
me what the study is, but it does something
It,
different.
it connects your body systems. It's a direct connection to the words and to the energy of what you're putting out there. Chelsea, I also love the 7 steps. It's uh, everything you guys have been saying is so powerful. I think it's very cool. I got a lot from today with all of you.
100%.
Yeah, that's one thing I can say. These conversations, I think this is my fourth one. And it's like, because we're all talking, we're not saying the exact same thing. Everybody has their own unique perspective and spin, but we're all leaning towards the same things and we all learn so much from each other. These conversations have been absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's funny because I think Chelsea, you were the one earlier who said something about, like how it feels when you're connected to your goals. And in a previous conversation, we had that same discussion about physically, like the somatics of it. Like you can feel when you're actually aligned with something and when you're not aligned with something. It's just understanding how it feels in your body because it's not going to feel the same way for you as it does for somebody else.
Your body
Yeah.
is the greatest measurement. Your body will tell you right away if you're off track.
Hmm.
Right away. It doesn't yeah, it doesn't waste a moment. It will make sure you know right away where you are at all times.
I think it's so interesting too that like sometimes we know what that is, right? We know what that feels like. And then we get lost and buried again in the, well, why can't I find it again today? Why can't what worked yesterday, like to put me in that state, work today? And guess what? Your subconscious worked. It did what it was supposed to do to keep you from finding that space because you're sitting there trying to force something that energetically just wasn't correct for you for that moment in that day and what you were gearing up to and what you actually needed to be doing to want to move forward that day. And so I think that sometimes too, even what we're talking about, like with these different prompts and these different ways to see things, it's important to know that there's 27 different ways to get to the same thing for yourself. And sometimes what always works for you doesn't work for you that day, but there's a purpose to that, right? Like we're not just like all, this ball of like, chaos and clarity and things like that. Like it's one and the same. Like it serves you. There is no like positive and negative spin to either of that, right? Clarity can be a crutch
Yeah.
just as much as it can be a gift, and vice
Yep.
versa.
Hmm.
Like
Yep.
it's not either or. Nothing is either or. We're just all inclusive of our own being and self.
Yep.
And
Yes,
and for people
exactly.
just and for people just starting out or aren't familiar with identifying those feelings in your body, like I think Carrie was just referring to, a tool that I come to again and again, and I encourage my clients to use is actually Martha. I think it's Martha Beck. It's a body compass, but using your body as a compass. So like tuning in on something that you remember didn't feel good, wasn't a right decision, and reconnecting. So it's a little guided meditation, reconnecting to how that felt. And then think of a time where everything felt very joyous and connecting to that feeling. So then you can tune into those feelings, record them. And then when you're going through your day or week and you experience something like, ooh, a fork in the road, which should I do? What would it feel like to go that way? Recognize how that feels. Is it closer to the good feeling or the bad feeling? And then it kind of helps you make decisions and getting used to tuning in to our body, right? Because our body does have so many messages for us. But if you're not used to tuning in or you haven't felt safe to tune in your body, you feel safer here. Um, it's an easy tool to get you to move down into your body.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I don't remember the name, but I feel like it was somebody I was following online. But I think I did something similar to that where it's like, okay, this is the decision you made. How does it feel? And I think I need to go back and redo that. It's been a few years. So, because sometimes are easier to really connect than others. So,
Well, you hear a lot of people talk about like, oh yeah, it was a full body yes or a full body no. Well, what does that mean? What does that mean for me? It's going to be different for you. Like
yeah.
the sensation in your body is going to feel differently. And
Mhm.
if you're completely disconnected from your body, you're not going to have any idea. So,
Yeah. I feel like my yeses are much more quiet than my nos. That's
Huh.
one thing that I notice. I feel like when something is a yes for me, I can feel that it's full body, but it's a very low, like very quiet, almost like a hum, versus when it's a no, it's like a scream. It's like, no. It's like you're not
Alarms and
doing this.
bells.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, all right, ladies, we are at the end, but I want to say thank you all so much for being here, for being a part of this wonderful conversation. And I want to thank everybody who was able to join us live today for this absolutely amazing conversation. So I hope you're leaving with at least one insight, one shift, or one small action that feels doable and supportive for whatever season you're in. So whether you're watching us live or if you're watching the replay, I'd love to have you drop something in the comments. Let us know what your biggest takeaways were. And just remember, conversations like this are possible because there are so many other women out there who are going through so much of what you're also going through. We're all sharing these experiences so that you know that you're not alone. And remember, if today's discussion resonated with you, I'd love to invite you to stay connected. You can watch all the replays of our past panels, and you can stay tuned for all of the future ones to come. So just subscribe to the Balance Success with Tameeka Leon YouTube channel, and then we'll see you for any future conversations that we have. And ladies, I hope you all have an absolutely beautiful rest of your day and a wonderful holiday season. And I'll see everybody later. Bye.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Tameeka. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.